Ladies and gentlemen, afternoon. My name is Shaji Al Mulk. I'm the chairman for Mulk Holdings, which also owns Alubond Global as one of the companies. Alubond, the company, is an American firm manufacturing metal composites, and we have a global position. Many call us at the largest producer in the world, but we surely are in the top three. Production bases and operations in the US, Europe, Middle East, which is here, in UAE, and India, Turkey, Sri Lanka, and new production plants coming up in Saudi and Russia. One of our expertise, which we have developed at the composite panels, is focused on fire-rated panels and fire-rated systems, basically. Now, as you all know, a panel is only as good as a system, and we are very pleased to be involved over the last 1 decade and supplying to almost 90 countries fire-rated facades. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Khalid, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Khalid Al Khatib. I'm the CEO of NAFCO. NAFCO is originally from UAE. We have around 6,000 employees now and over 350 engineers in fire protection, specialized in all fields of fire. I'm pleased to say that today, NAFCO, we are covering up to 108 countries, products manufactured in UAE, and we're exporting to these countries. And NAFCO today has the biggest listing of products approval from the UL. We are number 1 outside America, and we are number 4 with the American companies. Thank you.
Thank you. David, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm David O'Reilly. I am with Snag & Inspect as Marketing Director. We are a specialized property inspection and investigation company that was set up in Dubai just 4 years ago. Our specialty field is looking at any aspects of the built environment, but particularly tower blocks, since they seem to have the most challenges. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's give them a hand. Khalid, we'll start with the home team, as they say, okay? So I have a few questions for you. First of all, do you think the new laws in regards to fireproofing and cladding on buildings will help bring down incidences here in the UAE?
I think, honestly, the new law, which has been initiated recently by the Civil Defense, that all the cladding must be rated, fire rated, it will eliminate the hazard of fire in buildings. But we have to take care of how we shall assess the existing buildings. And each building has its own criteria, and every building has to be assessed based on the material, what it has, and what system we can put there, because it is impossible to take the old cladding out. But for the new regulations, I think it's it is the best, and I'm sure it will be implemented.
Very good. How safe is the UAE when it comes to fire safety?
I think
how advanced, let's put it that way.
Honestly speaking, I think in UAE we are very advanced in terms of life safety and buildings. Since I remember, since more than 10 years, a law has been passed for the sprinkler system to be installed in all buildings. And from my side, if there is a sprinkler, there is no worry actually inside the building, except for the smoke where we have to handle it. Most of the buildings in UAE is sprinklered. And will give a big safety. And there is a new law being passed by Sheikh Saif bin Zayed Al Nahyan for that all materials now must be listed and approved. This one will also help a lot. And by this one, I think UAE, you can compare it with USA, and maybe more advanced in some European countries, because I have seen a lot of 5-star hotels in Europe. Maybe they are not sprinklered. But over here, you can never see a building which is not sprinklered, especially for hotels and high-rise building.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Very good. Here in the UAE, we've had wild growth and rapid expansion. So what can be done in order to avoid or decrease the big fire incidents here in UAE and the whole Middle East as a whole?
I think now we have, after the cladding issue, that the best thing is awareness and education. The awareness, the most hazardous thing, I think, in the buildings is the smoke. And the smoke, the only thing that we can overcome this problem is really to teach the people how to behave if there's a smoke. Maybe small videos, we can cooperate with the civil defense, teaching for whoever wants to live in a certain building, that this video will be translated in Arabic, English, any language there, so the people are aware about how to behave in case of smoke.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's give Khalid a hand for his questions. Thank you. Saji, I will come to you from Aluband. And my first question to you is, with global presidents in more than 80 countries, as you mentioned, and a decade-long experience in the fire resistance cladding systems, how do you think the current aluminum composition panels and external wall cladding industry in general are quality competent in the UAE with respect to the new UAE fire codes?
I think that's a very, very good question. Now, the direct comparison of what UAE's current cladding system and how the new UAE fire code is changing, I can very confidently say that the new code is absolutely spot on with the international standards. Now, we have been manufacturing the facades and the fire-rated claddings for almost 10 years, even in the UAE. And from experience, we produce, like any manufacturer, both qualities, the fire-rated quality and the non-fire-rated quality. Over the past years, more than 90% of exports to the overseas market, like the Europe and even the US markets, have been for fire-rated products. And the change, and the UAE, and not only the UAE, the whole GCC actually, was dominantly a non-fire-rated product earlier. But after the UAE fire code, we are seeing a drastic change and a trend towards the fire-rated claddings. Now here, I think I would, again from experience, like to add here is, there's a very important need for all the UAE civil defense departments to work as a unified document. And we do see that there is some confusion at times to what exactly the regulations are. And I would say it's a work in progress, and we are definitely in the right direction to get the UAE fire codes in line with the international standards.
Thank you. Next question I have for you. Do you think a complete system certification for fire resistance is preferable over a standalone panel fire ratings? If so, what do you think are the components of an ideal fire-resistant cladding system?
Yeah, I think it's a very important understanding of what a system is all about. Now, we did actually a very thorough analysis of some of the fires recently in the UAE, and with the help of the civil defense departments here. And this analysis was very specific. Now, we had some fires where a very small spark ended up in the whole building going to flames. Now, traditionally, a system overseas or globally is a system which has got A, the fire-rated panel by itself, B, the substructure which holds the panels, and C, the insulation which comes behind the system. But surprisingly, in the UAE we found we need a fourth component, D, and that is the coating on the wall itself. Because here we found that some of the fires actually got instigated by the flammable bitumen coatings which were applied on the wall. And so now, to answer this question, we would, as an industry experienced organization, would recommend a system to have all the four components fire rated: the coating on the wall, the insulation, the substructure, and the cladding itself. Again, in the panels, it's very, very important to be very specific on the grade, because today the fire-rated grades have evolved into different classes. There's a class B, class A2, and it all depends on the heights of the building, the occupancy of the building, whether it's a public institution like hospital or prisons, or where you have, or even hotels and residentials. So there's a study which, again, from the UE Fire Code, the new UE Fire Code actually takes very good in detail of all the specifications. And some of the new drafts, which I believe are yet to be released, if those drafts are released, we will be fully compatible and cover the system, what the system is all about. Thank you.
Well said. My last question to you, Saji, is Aluband, as you had mentioned, has been installed in more than 80 countries and has successfully met international fire resistance regulations. With your global experience, please take us through how have the international fire safety regulations for external wall cladding developed in context of the new UAE Fire Code?
Yeah, I think this particular question I kind of answered in reference to my earlier answers, but still to be more specific. Now, the international standards for cladding not only take care of the system, but also takes care of the installer qualifications, the engineering involved into that, pre-installation procedures, after installation procedures. Is a whole document which takes care of the entire scenario. And actually, to put it in a nutshell, responsibility is the key factor in this. Because as a system manufacturer, and the relationship between a supplier and the building owner is for a long time. Like Aluband gives a 10-year warranty for a system. Now, what is the meaning of this warranty? The warranty is direct between a supplier and a building owner. In between, for the last 10 years, I think the contractor probably is not in any connection. The engineer who actually specified the system probably is not in connection. So here, globally, the system specifiers pin down a responsibility to a single source supply. And that is the key, which I would say, and again, the new UE Fire Code is actually taking care of the entire procedure and also making it a responsibility of the supplier of the system to ensure that the whole system is certified and held responsible. So again, to answer, the UE Fire Code will be spot on with the international standards once the new draft is approved.
Thank you very much. Everyone, let's give Saji a hand. Thank you so much. David, we're going to give you the wrap-up. So I have a few questions for you, and okay. I understand we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. What do you see as the main challenge to fire safety in the built environment, and are these unique to this region?
I think the biggest single challenge is code compliance, or rather, should I say, the lack of code compliance. You know, governments in this particular region, in particular within the UAE, have been extremely proactive and very strong in putting into place a whole variety of measures, including the UAE Fire Code, of course. They have, as Engineer Khaled said earlier, leapt ahead of many of the countries, if not most of the countries in Europe and the United States, in some of the provision that has been made. So this isn't anything to do with government and government initiative. This is more to do with adherence to those initiatives. And in answer to the second part, no, it's certainly not unique to this part of the world. I think this has been a problem that the world has faced ever since the Industrial Revolution started in the mid-1700s, which I think one of the previous speakers referred to. Once you started bringing in large sections of the population, you took them off the land and you put them into confined spaces that we call towns and cities, and then in particular when you start putting them up in tower blocks, then you create issues. And that creates pressure. And those pressures mean that you have to have buildings put up, and usually buildings put up very quickly, and there are pressures on that process. And so overall what tends to happen is that those pressures cause difficulties for the statutory authorities, not least which because I guess the big contracting companies, particularly the consulting engineers, are busy out there poaching all the best guys to take on all the top jobs. So sometimes there's an experience gap that appears. So it's by no means a unique situation to this part of the world at all. It's everywhere.
Okay, maybe you touched on this a little bit, but I'll just add this. How are these challenges addressed in elsewhere?
In a variety of different ways. It depends which part of the world you're in. Some countries choose to be very, very prescriptive. It's entirely government driven. Other countries have adopted the policy of passing laws that mean that if you are the senior consulting engineer, for instance, you carry all of the responsibility. So it's up to you to make sure that everybody does their job properly. Other countries use government inspectors or third-party inspectors, or in fact a combination of all three. At the end of the day, what you need is a mechanism, because all these mechanisms all achieve the same goal, and that is that they create an element of transparency in the marketplace, and that transparency encourages code compliance.
Do you have a proposal on how the old buildings in the UAE, which are already cladded with non-fire-rated materials, can be addressed?
Do I have a mechanism for addressing it?
Yep.
Well, I guess the only 100% mechanism is to take that cladding off and put some proper cladding on. But I am not aware of any system that is currently available that will prevent the old cladding from causing the problems that quite clearly we've seen, particularly over the last 12 months. There are various mechanisms that can be employed to reduce the problem, but I don't see that there is an absolute solution. You could sprinkle the outside of the building. It's one way of reducing it. You could use special paints that are available, which are heavily fire retardant, and spray the outside of the building. But ultimately what you have is a panel that is highly flammable. So that's the problem. The only way to get rid of that is to take it off the building.
Very good. And I just want to close off on this question with you, David, and forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, but
Sure.
is it international?
Internachi, yes.
Okay, Nachal, Middle East, we're asked to propose a framework to address these issues. What would be its main components?
Well, transparency is what we're trying to create. So the main components really would be to create standards that we currently don't have here. Standards for property inspection, standards for inspectors themselves. There's no training course that I'm aware of that teaches people how to become inspectors. There are focus courses where you can learn something about a particular subject matter, but they don't teach you how to be an inspector. So teaching somebody to be an inspector. So you need standards for inspection. You need standards for inspectors. You need training, certification, and education programs for inspectors first and foremost. And then you need to put in place, say, an auditing program such that all of the inspectors, now having got all of their qualifications, having gone out into the big wide world and started to inspect properties to the sort of standards that the UAE government would really love to have, that they maintain those standards. And that should be done really by a neutral body. You heard our wonderful lady at the end there mention Internachi, a name that will not be very familiar to most of you. Internachi is a US-based organization. Their speciality field is training, is education, is certification and auditing of property inspectors. And I'm pleased to say that we are very, very closely associated with that organization. All of our inspectors are, in fact, Internachi certified.
Gentlemen, with that, I want to thank you for your time. Everyone, let's give them a hand.